this evening, and thanks to the AUP organizers for hosting this event today. It is great to see my fellow party leaders here, the ones who showed up anyway. The Premier may have shunned your invitation, but I have to tell you, when I received the invitation, I didn't hesitate. I'm delighted to be here, and my colleague Carrie Toll is here as well. I want to talk about some of the bills that happened in the legislature, because you may have been surprised at some of the positions that we took, and I did want to explain to you why we stood with you on, and the other opposition leaders on so many of them. AUPE has been dragged into some controversy over the last years, mainly because of a whole host of bad legislation that the government brought in, namely Bills 45 and 46 last fall, and then Bills 9 and 10 this spring. Obviously, AUPE found each of these bills offensive, but what might surprise some of you, and I know it surprised the PCs, is that we found them pretty offensive too. And so the first real meetings we had with AUPE leadership have gone a lot more smoothly than I think a lot of us would have expected. And I look forward to working with all of you in the future, but hopefully from a position where I can ensure that some of the unnecessary attacks to your members never see the light of day. So our biggest objection to last fall's bills 45 and 46 was the process. No consultation, no open dialogue, no open faith negotiations, and this just isn't how Wild Rose believes things should be done. I'd say this is probably the most fundamental difference between us and the PC party. We will negotiate hard, but we'll negotiate fair at the table and in good faith. As for the anti-striking law, Bill 45, we had a couple of very serious objections. First, we just didn't see how the existing restrictions were largely inadequate, or deemed to be inadequate by the government. We thought that they deterred strikes already. We didn't think that they needed to bring in draconian changes. We don't think it's very conservative to come up with changes for laws that don't need fixing. But second, we were also flabbergasted that the government would try and make it illegal for rank and file members to even discuss the possibility of a strike and do so publicly. Talk about Big Brother. Wild Rose has always stood up for fundamental freedoms, and the freedom of speech for everyday Albertans is pretty fundamental. Here again is the difference between us and the PCs. We would always negotiate. We would never impose. While restraint on public sector salary increases may generally be a conservative value, failing to negotiate in good faith and disrespecting the rule of law by breaking collective agreements is certainly not. We've noticed that there's this disturbing pattern with the PCs that when a law impedes their objectives, they don't change their objectives, they just go and change the law. Offensive to most of those who are involved in the university sector when the then Advanced Education Minister Thomas Lukasik figured he could hire a board to come in and tell them how to manage their financial affairs and find savings, when of course we have a government that doesn't seem to be able to manage its own finances. But in fact, the party that we have found that we have the most difficult time working with when it comes to trying to change a bad piece of legislation is the governing party. And I actually believe that it would be healthy in the legislature to have a minority government. We have got $9 to $10 billion a year that we get in resource revenue. This is a government that has blown through virtually all of our savings, plus they're siphoning dollars off the Heritage Savings Trust Fund. They simply have demonstrated they have no capacity to manage our finances, and that is reason alone to change government. The one thing I would say as you're looking and deciding how you want to vote in this election is that I always look at the early warning signs of a leader that is going to manifest into bigger problems later on. And there are some early warning signs with this new PC Premier. He's avoiding debates, not only during his own PC leadership, but during his own local constituency debate and avoiding coming here today to face you. As one of his first acts, he appointed his friends to key patronage positions. He appointed 2 unelected cabinet ministers, one of whom knows absolutely nothing about the ministerial portfolio that he's taken over. He made changes to the salary grid for those and new appointments for those who are in certain agencies, boards and commissions who worked on his campaign, and then announced that he was going to do a review of agencies, boards and commissions. There's still issues about illegal donations that have not been paid back. He's using his pulpit to be able to do announcements during the campaign, spending taxpayer money to campaign. This is illegal in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. You are not allowed to make government announcements using unelected candidates as a mechanism to try to win votes. These are early warning signs. It's also something that should be troubling to us, that there appears to be no mechanism for how any of these decisions are made in consultation with anyone, not as cabinet, not as MLA colleagues, none of you. When you hear Mayor Nenshi talk about how the flood mitigation approach that they want to take for Calgary was announced with zero consultation, that gives you an idea of how this guy is going to operate if he becomes premier and elected premier. You have the opportunity to be able to stop that. If you don't like what I've said today, then vote for one of my colleagues. I know in the last election did. I would just ask you this time around, don't vote PC. If we can agree on anything, I think we can agree that we need a change of government.